to the latest, most sophisticated, but also just simply, catalog of materials available. Why we think that is important is because, our industry, comes from a background where we really spent a lot of time in person, in the office, face to face, and we're really moving to what we're seeing in the industry is that, hey, we spend less time together in the office, we're meeting less face to face, and digital access and seamless access to materials is still needed and relevant, right? And so that's why we think Material Bank is perfect and was truly built for this moment, in which what we do is we essentially digitize the material library or your sample library that you could find in any of the architecture studios. We bring the digital version of that notion. What we do is that we really consolidate the product catalog from thousands of manufacturers in one single website so that you can source, you can compare materials, but most importantly, you can receive samples for those materials next day. We really, we'll show you later, but we have a logistics facility that allows for next day delivery. So what that means is that without Material Bank, what it used to take, imagine that you're working on a project and you want to get 5-7 different material samples. It generally takes multiple calls to different brand rep orders because you need to contact 5, 6, 7 brands. You need to track 5 different shipments. They arrive at different times, and it's really a very tedious process. With Material Bank, everything gets delivered in one simple box. We do that overnight. We have a team in our warehouse that really takes care of packaging every order. And that gets delivered next door to you. And so that's really our product. How do we make that work is thanks to big logistics facility. We have 2 of these buildings. There's one such building in Memphis, Tennessee, and a second one in Paris. The reason for that is because we work very closely with FedEx. And so here you see thousands, millions of samples stored from all of our brand partners. Whenever designers come to Material Bank and they place, they're working on a project and they place an order, these samples get collected through robots, but also through our warehouse associates. We get them placed in the Material Bank tray, and then they get delivered to you next day, as if it was a mood board. The intent really, we really place a lot of care in the order preparation as well as the packaging so that you can receive a Material Bank order and present it directly to a colleague or to a client. Obviously, we know that everybody's working on very tight schedules and project timelines. So we really allow, in the US, we allow ordering until midnight Eastern time. In Europe, it's until 5:30 London, 6:30 Central European time. And we deliver those samples next morning. If in the US, it's before 10:30 a.m. And in Europe, it's really during the morning in every big major European city. And if you're in a bit more of an isolated area, it could be in the afternoon or in a couple of days. But it's our intent is really to be next day. So that's how we do it. As I said, we're a global company. We ship to 38 countries. The way it works is that we have a US-based catalog, and then we have a European-based catalog. So if you're based in Europe, you'll have access to catalog that spans the whole Europe. And if you're based in North America, it's going to be mostly North American catalog. So it's 2 different websites. Although we're now working on integration, it's going to be one single website, and hoping to release that later this year. So, but just for visibility. So this gives you a little bit of the sense and a vision of the scale over the last 90 days. But every month we're shipping hundreds of orders every day. As I said before, in Europe we have roughly 50,000 designers that are registered on the platform, and we're close to 20,000 active users. Meaning regular designers that use Material Bank to place their orders. And I think globally we're at roughly 140,000 designers. The most very important thing, by the way, is that we're completely free. So Material Bank is a free platform for design professionals, meaning for architects and interior designers. There's no charge whatsoever. We work on behalf of the brand manufacturers. So all these brands pay a subscription fee for them to be available on Material Bank. Every time you order a sample, we ask that you please include your project details. And that's information that then gets shared with the brand. And then you may receive a follow-up from a sales representative of the brand for them to better serve you. But essentially, we work on behalf of the brand. For the designers, this is a completely free service. So that's also very important, and I wanted to let you know. This is how the platform would work. As I said, 135,000 global architects and designers. Last year, we performed almost over 17 million searches. And this is really how the platform looks like. We'll go into more detail later, but essentially you can type either a brand name or a type of product, and then you have search results coming up. We have a number of filters on the top, and then you can filter by color, application, performance, and really any type of attribute that you may be interested on. We've seen very deep adoption. This is mostly for North America. We're quite mature already in the US. We started a bit later in Europe, but we've been very fortunate to see great adoption across multiple firms. And as I said, our big focus is now growing the business in Europe. And so we have here in Europe, we have a team in between London, Paris, and Stuttgart in Germany, and really working hard to get the tool known across the industry. So we're mostly doing digital partnerships, like this one with Gendo, but also you'll see us in a few events that are important for the industry. So we're in Milan Design Week, we were at Clerkenwell, as well as 3 days of Design Copenhagen, and we'll be in Paris Design Week. So we try to be present. The Material Bank gets used, and so we love to do that, but we really take pictures of the different projects that happen in the platform, and it sort of gives you an idea of the depth and breadth of our catalog. So we now have in Europe, I think it's over 45,000 different references. We have millions of pieces on the website, and that really allows you to source materials and categories from all sides of the product catalog, right? So in this case, it could be a 5-star hotel that was designed in the US, in California, and you see that we have 8 categories and 11 different brands. And so I think this is really testament of the depth of the catalog that you can find on Material Bank. Another very important feature of the platform is that we really allow for you to organize your projects. So a lot of feedback that we got from the community was that, yeah, it's great to work on projects that sometimes happen in smaller scale design studios, where I had this client I worked with like a few years ago, and we did a hotel for them, and now they wanted to repeat that theme somewhere else. And do you remember what materials we ordered, etc. So we really put attention and care on building that part of the product as well, so that we can work with you on understanding what type of project you're working on. Is this concept design, schematic design? What's the date, expected completion date? Who's the person that's leading that project? You can then share that project information with other colleagues if you work at a bigger studio. And so that's something we're continuing to invest on, this feature of the project, as well as, you can then, this is not yet on the current version of the site, but it's going to come now in Q4 in September, October, where we'll be able to say, for each of the products that I've been selected, or each of these samples that I've been ordering, whether I approved this for my project, it's shortlisted, I'm considering it. And so we find that's very helpful for our designers to share with colleagues, as well as potential clients, or really any stakeholders in the project, to really give visibility on everything that's happening end to end, from the material selection to specification process. And maybe one last bit that we're very excited about that's also going to launch. This has already launched in North America, and then this is going to launch end of year in Europe, which is called the MTAG. And with the MTAG, what we're going to do, or what we're doing, is we're placing an NFC chip in each and every of the samples that get shipped through Material Bank. And so that designers have on their fingertips all the product information. So it was also a lot of feedback that we're getting, which is like, hey, I have hundreds of samples on my studio. I didn't even remember when I ordered them. Who's the person that I should contact for this sample? Which brand was it? Pricing information, availability, or simply access to the technical specifications of that material. That's now going to be available on your phone, and this is the same technology that Apple Pay uses, or any of the NFC cards that you have on the phone. So you simply take the phone, you tap the sample, and you get all of that. So that's something that we just launched in the US, and we're launching in Europe end of this year, and we're very excited about. And so that's one piece, and then the other piece, and that's where we're very excited to be partnering with Gendo, is really enhancing our product catalog, just beyond the classic information, but also texture files, really integrating our catalog with cutting edge design solutions and so forth. So we're very, very excited to be partnering with Gendo, so that in addition of our design community just receiving the physical samples and supporting them on their workflow, we'll now also be able to integrate those in design tools live, so that design decisions are easier, and they can also be made on a rendering context and 3D context. And hopefully, as we move forwards down the lane of technology, we can also integrate in the future augmented reality and so forth. So yeah, that's what we're up to, and that's a quick notion of Material Bank. So with that, I'll handle it back to George and Joe.
Thanks, Mark. Super cool. And the NFC chip seems really exciting. I could see that would be very useful. We did order a Material Bank package ourselves to the office as well, just to see. And it was meticulously packed. It was quite impressive and delicate. And there was a very nice little tote bag in there. So if anyone is exactly any other reason, to try it, there's some banging merch. So yeah, really cool. And yeah, I mean, just to reiterate the point, really, that it's great for us to partner with you guys, obviously, because we are building a platform to help architects and designers in professional work. And while AI can make some, really compelling imagery, you eventually have to build the thing, and building it with magical AI materials is obviously impossible. So being able to ground all of this inside of like actual real world materials, real world products, things that you can actually touch, I think is really meaningful, and closes the loop between sort of AI gimmick and actual functional work. So it's awesome to be able to include the Material Bank catalog in that sort of virtuous circle, I guess. So yeah, really exciting stuff. So what I will do is share my screen and show you how it actually has landed in the platform. So there we go, this one. Hopefully we can see this.
Yep.
Okay, great. Let me just move my own face out of the way. So I'm just in one of the projects on the platform that I've created. Every project should now be able to see this. And there's this nice shiny little new icon on the toolbar at the bottom. And this is the way to get to the material catalog. So we've presented it in a slightly different way to how it's shown on the Material Bank website. Obviously, for our purposes, it's for use in design steps. So it's organized by color and a sort of category broadly first. And there is material sort of specification, detail, manufacturer information in there, but that's sort of a click through into this material detail panel here, where you can then see some of the more specific aspects about it, and then click through to the Material Bank website to order a sample, but we'll leave that till last. I'll just scroll through this without any filters. You can see every category of the material that we've put in there, which you can expand. You can filter by those same categories, and you can also filter by finishes and textures, and also by color groups, so that hopefully you can get to something like what you're imagining quite quickly. If I select one of these, just for example, you can see we've gone from 16,000 down to a much shorter selection, but where we have textures with multiple colors, those are also bucketed in the same thing. So as long as one of those colors is present, it should be filterable. So to use this, you just need to either drag it out onto the canvas or press the plus icon, which will do the same, which will then add that asset to the canvas for you to use like every other asset there. The difference being that we know that this one is a texture, so it has a slightly more limited selection of functions, but there is also the Material Bank details here again with the Material Bank icon, which you can then click through again to get to the website. So to show you some examples of this in use, actually maybe I'll do a new one. Here are two examples that I did just ahead of the call, Blue Peter style. I've got two input images here, one hand sketch and one 3D screenshot, basic grey card model, and my reference image. So these are both images of the same space. So I've used the reference image across both of these images to then get this first iteration, which is nicely consistent material palette, vibe and color scheme. So that reference has made that a nice cohesive set of images. But as ever, we assume an iterative workflow and that you'll want to make changes and try different ideas out. So in this first example, I wanted to change the fabric on my sofa to this Material Bank asset, the fetus, I'm never going to try to pronounce that, Fishbacher 1819. So what I've done is select my image, clicked on the swap material tool, and then drawn my mask. So just to very quickly do this, I've just done a quick messy selection of the sofa. And this is because the edit material feature is going to try and stick with the geometry as it is found in your scene. So those of you familiar, we have another feature called edit, which is a more general thing that will deviate from the architecture, whereas edit material will work to maintain the geometry as it is already found, so keep it architecturally consistent. I'm then going to remove the mask for the pillows. So again, just going to quickly click around here so that I only have the sofa selected. We've had a few webinars now, and a recurring request has been to add smart selection back into the platform. We are working on that, and also bringing both Polygon and Lasso into one more unified bit of the interface, so that wherever you are doing selection steps, you have the same set of tools giving you as much flexibility and control as you want. So that should be coming shortly. But here's my selection made with Polygon Lasso for now. I've drag and dropped my material reference, but I'll just do that again here. You can also open the material catalog directly from inside the edit material feature. Here I've already got my sample, and then I've got my prompt, which is dark orange velvet sofa. I'm going to click generate just to leave that one running, but here's the output I did earlier. As you can see, nothing else about this image has changed, only the material on the sofa, and it is still the same sofa at the end of it all. So again, really consistent design level step there. So here's our other example while that other cooks. I used actually literally the same prompt in my render step here for these two. All I did was change the wording from modern contemporary office lounge or break area into a modern or contemporary office reception. That's what I put in here. Otherwise, I used the same prompt again because I wanted consistency between these two views and to make it sure that they were of the same building. But otherwise, same reference image, essentially the same prompt, but with these two different inputs, which gave me these very satisfying results here. I like this one as consistent with the input. And then for this example, I've got a different timber that I wanted to use on the slats. Again, use the edit material to just quickly select this one. Just did a very rough box in this case. Saved that, and then generated it just with the prompt dark timber vertical slats to match the geometry that was already there, but using this as my new material reference to get something that is consistent with my material reference, representative of that sample, but well lit, sticking with the architecture, the design inside of that new image. So maybe just show you a couple of other examples that we've done. Here, some terrazzo taken from the sample, selected the floor and generated in space, but here described glossy reflective, and that's come out nicely. I'll also say that we are in the process of working on scale and rotation. We've got quite a nice solution to that now, so you can be in much more control. You'll generally find that the input you provide is taken quite literally, again, so that we're not letting the AI sort of deviate. But it might be that in reality, this terrazzo grain is smaller than this, as it's shown here. We will have that feature in the platform over the next couple of weeks, actually, so that you can control to that very fine level of detail, and to make sure that when you have regular patterns, that you can control the rotation, scale, and relative position of that to the space. But here we've got some very nice examples of some tiles, again taken from the Material Bank catalogue and put onto the backsplash in this one. I've got an example here. This isn't a Material Bank material, but just to say again that it's essentially the same thing. You don't behave any differently for it being a Material Bank asset. It is used as if it were any other asset. In this case, we use this sample to change the facade here in the background. So maybe I'm going to take this chance to also plug the video feature before we sort of go on to the next steps. You'll notice that when you select assets, you'll see a new feature in the toolbar, which is video. It was in beta for the last couple of weeks. It is now properly released. So you have all of these preset camera moves that you can make in two broad categories, controlled and creative. Controlled, these 6 are purposefully quite restricted camera moves because we only have the sort of starting frame to work from, and we don't want the AI to deviate so far from that that it's making up the context of your design itself. So each of these, walk forward, pan left, pan right, time lapse, are very controlled so that it never goes so far as to start inventing the design, but will add really nice activation, occupation, and sort of detail inside of your images, and they'll be downloaded as MP4s. So maybe just show you a couple of these. And also to say that the 2 creative ones are cinematic edit, which will take your first image and construct 4 shots across 10 seconds, starting with the first image, but then 3 different camera angles, details, versions based on your input. But those are creative. It will sort of start deviating, but hopefully in a very helpful and controlled way. And then custom transition lets you put in the end frame so that you can go from point A to point B across 5 or 10 seconds to generate the output. So this is what I think Joe had done earlier. He has taken the input as our first frame, tired of custom transition, and taken this terrazzo material as the output and generated to then give us this sample here, or this video rather, which I can make full screen and just press play, which will show a nice little animated transition across the floor, revealing the new material. There is a nice little feature here too, where if you like a sort of interim frame, you can save that frame to canvas and use that as its own asset to then continue to work with. So if the videos give you something new and unexpected, or a different view you hadn't considered, you can take that and iterate on that one as well. So there's maybe just a couple of other video examples here. So this one I think is the same custom transition from the original image through to this grey finish here. I'm just going to play this one on the canvas. Nice, draping that across the facade. And then we've got this example here where we've got this nice timber flooring added into the scene with our dog friend. This one I think is just time lapse, so the camera will stay still but sort of move time quickly forwards. So I think from day to night, so our dog will wander off scene and then transition into the evening. So you can save that frame and carry on with that evening shot. So very excited, that's live now. They are separate from subscriptions and available to paid users. So you can add seconds to your account to then generate videos with. Hopefully all very straightforward. Cool, so then maybe the last thing I'll show before handing over back to Mark is the what happens when you click the Material Bank button on the platform. So here in our materials details, I'll click order a free sample. and this will take me through to that sample on Material Bank, showing you all of the details. I'm already logged in here and I have my project set up, so I can just click add to cart, which will then add that sample there, and I can then go to checkout and order that, as Marc says, for free. We have a huge amount of Material Bank catalog on there, so not all of them will be available depending on where you are. It will still take you to the website, but it will tell you whether or not you can actually order that. But I'll maybe pause there and let Marc take us through the Material Bank interface a little bit as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, George. And I mean, we're super excited about this, and obviously, I think we have now a big part of our catalog, over 50 brands that are available, and we're working on enhancing that. I'll give you a quick overview of one Gendo and Material Bank. How does the platform work? Obviously, so there is one way for you to request a sample, which was the one that George just showed us now, right? Like it's okay, like I just found one application and then I can go ahead and order that sample. There are multiple other ways in which we offer availability to our product, or in which you can discover the Material Bank product. The classic one, the most classic one, is either you can search by products or you can search by brands. So obviously, if you search by products, you can, even have like materials, FF&E, or architectural, right? So let's say I'm interested in flooring. So I can, just come here in flooring and I see all the flooring products that are available on the platform. If I click on colorways, this is like, I think we have over thousands of products. All colorways means that each collection, sometimes like this could be like one particular collection or one particular type of product, and then they have multiple colors. So you can either decide to have those embedded or just see all the products all together. Now, what's most used is really the filters, right? So I can come here and I can filter by brand. I can filter by price range, where it's like from more cheaper to most expensive. I can filter by color. I can filter by installation type, country of origin, availability, which means that the manufacturer confirms that they have stock available of this product, or that the product is stocked in Europe, etc., or custom made and so forth. Pattern, have abrasion resistance, flammability. So it's really like a lot of like literally condensating all the product catalog information and converting it to filters so that it's easier for you to make decisions. Imagine that I'm just, I know already the brand I like to work for, so I can, directly go here and say, okay, I'm just going to look at Milliken products. Or, if I wanted to include another brand, I could also do that. And let's say, I just want to have Parador products or Ampico products. And that's something I can do. So that's just how filters could work. I'm going to leave it and click just for the sake of the example. The only thing that's super helpful, so by the way, on the color, you also can have that here. And as again, disclaimer, this is the current version of the platform. We're working towards a new release that's going to happen towards the end of this year. We're very excited, and we really reviewed the whole product. We have, we changed the color tool, which is going to be much cooler, and there's a few other different things that are coming up. But so then another feature is the compare feature, where I can, go ahead and now I can select. Let's say I'm considering Milliken, I'm considering Tutec2, Ege, and Fabremont for a project. I can come here and then I can compare. And so that's a pretty interesting tool where we can see whether it's commercial or residential use. Generally, what's the price point, what's their style, any other characteristics that can be compared, certifications in terms of environmental certifications, patterns, flammability, etc., warranties. So that's something that we include, and that's very helpful, for the material choices. So that's at a high level. The other thing, how the platform works, or for me to search materials, is I can also obviously go directly by brands. And so if I already work with a manufacturer, I can click, let's say I work a lot with Antolini, which they produce fantastic stone products. So I can already come here and I see all the products available by this brand. Once I'm interested by one product, I can click here and then I can click to learn more. And then this is really the product display page, what we call, which is just, we add more information about this product. So it's a product description. We generally include installation images if they're available. In this case, well, you can see it in the context of a dining table, and then everything else we have. It can also bring you to the brand page if you want to learn more about this manufacturer, where you have more information about them. As well as you can download sometimes additional presentations or even product catalogs, depending on the manufacturer. So some manufacturers will have like all the technical characteristics, all their product catalog here, or just simply, more information about who they are, where do they produce products. So anything that's, anything that you may be missing on the filter side, you may be able to find here on the brand pages, so that you really have the full knowledge of what are you specifying, who's this brand, how do they work, etc., etc. And so we do that over hundreds of manufacturers that we have on the site. Once I've made my decision, I can then go ahead as George say and place the order. The important thing is that you need to create a project. So each sample order is associated with a project. And that project information, in this case, this was for a hotel in Kitzbühel in Austria. But I can go ahead and create a new project. I put the project name. I need to put the location, the type of project, the phase, size, budget, and so forth. This is double purpose. So on the one hand, it helps you because then you can essentially work here and you have all the projects ordered. You understand what materials you had ordered in the past for certain projects. You can add collaborators to your projects. But the other important thing is that because that's the information that gets shared with the brand partners. I think we had a question on the chat where it's like, hey, we already work with a brand. We already have a contact in that brand. If we use Material Bank, will we bypass the brand? The answer is no. Everything that you do on Material Bank, the brand gets notified about. You see here this message where I can contact my representative. So if I had a question that I want to direct to Antolini, I can click this button and I send directly a message to my brand rep. Maybe I have a question about pricing, lead time. I'm asking whether we can meet, or hey, can you guys include like install images because I wanted to have more context on how this product looks like on a real project. I can do that and I can send a message, right? And so that goes directly to the brand. So it's a very important point. Material Bank we're just a technology layer. We don't sell anything. We just put you in contact with the brands. So everything you do inside Material Bank, your brand will have knowledge of. Your brand, like the brand rep you generally work with, they will get notified. They will know that you have ordered samples on Material Bank. We have a number of brand partners with whom we work closely with. We do webinars with them to encourage their whole teams to use Material Bank internally. The brands love Material Bank because it helps their sales teams get organized. Sometimes we also have some other sales teams that are a bit more old school. I'm Spanish, so I also find that a bit more sometimes in Spain, or maybe Italy could be a good example as well, where we have a bit more of a warmer culture and people like to come in the office and bring the samples. So sometimes that we see a bit less adoption with reps that have that style. But the vast majority of brands, really like that their sales teams use Material Bank, and because the whole information is shared with their sales team, and it really helps the brands as well get organized, have full visibility of the type of samples that designers are ordering, and really better serve the community. And so that's really how we operate. So I think that's pretty much everything I want to show. So this is something, by the way, works very well, which you can organize your projects. You can add collaborators with your projects. You can also create boards, by the way, which is something super helpful. So I can come here and I can add images, or I can combine images with samples that I have selected. So this was a project for a kitchen in Zurich for someone I know, and I was literally helping them seeing what type of tiles are available on Material Bank. And then, but this is really applicable for any project. So you can have these boards linked to projects. You can order all the samples that are in this board. You can also share this board with your team members, or add collaborators as well from your team, as well as from external teams for them to use. So that's another feature that works great. And the latest one I wanted to show is also we do a lot of partnerships with media and thought leaders on the latest trends. For instance, we just partnered a couple of weeks ago with Reba J on a quiet luxury trend report. So it's something very cool. And you can come on the site, and if you're interested in quiet luxury, the colleagues at Reba J, in partnership with, in this case, Percy & Co, have prepared a curated collection. And so this is a collection that reflects one of their latest trends, which is, in this case, quiet luxury in the One Triton Square workspace, which is a real project. It's a real project that Percy & Co has worked on. If you go to our Instagram, you'll see a video of the team at PRC talking about this project, how they got inspired, and why did they choose these materials. And so that's also something that we do a lot. And if you register at Material Bank, you will get newsletters every week with inspiration for different projects we've worked on. And so that's something very cool. And then you can come here, you can add all of these samples to cart. And really sort of like receive this collection, and so we receive this. Sorry, we produce this on a weekly basis. You can come here to collections, and we've done this in partnership in the past with other renewed architects like Piero Lisoni, for instance, during Design Week in Milan. We'll do another one for Paris Design Week, etc., etc. So that's also an important part, and hopefully we can in the future combine this, where it's not just a flat lay, but then maybe we can have the 3D project directly in Gendo, and then the orderable collection, which we're already working on as well. But yeah, so I think that's the summary of how Material Bank operates.
Yeah, super cool. I think the collections are quite inspirational to see a few things put together, and again, real world projects applied to makes it much more tangible. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. We've had a bunch of questions, which we'll get to. I thought maybe worth just fielding a few of the video ones first, just to make sure that we maybe did that in a batch. So a couple of questions around pricing. So yeah, apologies, I sort of skipped over that bit unintentionally. So if we go in and get to video, you can click on top up, which shows you the current pricing, which is packs of seconds. I want to acknowledge that we did a webinar last week, I think, about video specifically, and a lot of the feedback was that people would like unlimited generations for videos. So that was heard loud and clear, but we wanted to get this out in people's hands sooner rather than later. So the packs are a temporary setup to maintain access while we work on what an unlimited setup might look like. And we're looking at how we might start to fold in things like custom material catalogs too, that's been mentioned, that you might have specific brands that you work with and that you have across projects already that you want to maintain as well. So sort of all those things are being thought about at the moment. So this currently is the way to keep it going. The videos are quite a lot more computationally heavy to generate than images, which is why we've needed to separate them out from the subscription. But we want to find a solution to that works for everyone. So yeah, please let us know if you have any alternative suggestions. Of course, always looking for feedback on the feature itself and also the subscription setup. But this is the current solution and pricing until we work out the next steps. Was there any other questions on video, Joe?
Just having a quick scan, I think maybe just around on the pricing structure and how it works, which I think we've covered, and then some feedback on kind of like, what happens if you don't necessarily get the desired outcome. But I think George has mentioned, which is something we're working quite hard on, is the next unlimited package, which is what we're reviewing and looking, which will help resolve this in the same way from a generational point of view on images as well. So yeah, and there's a couple more in there specifically, but I know there's also a few more maybe to jump in across on for Marc, if that's all right, George. Was a couple around
please.
from maybe one from Alan, and Alan's asked a couple, which is great. So thank you so much. And maybe Marc, are the samples only available to registered designers, or can clients potentially order samples themselves, circumnavigating designers?
Yeah, great question. So only available to professional designers. So you need to register on Material Bank, and we will accept you straight away if you're a professional, which I believe most of you are. And only professionals can order samples. And so that's a really important feature for us. We're not open to the public or to consumers. And so our brand partners, really also pay a lot of attention in that their samples get ordered only by design professionals. And so to your question, the general public or a customer to a project cannot order samples. However, and I didn't talk about that. However, you can choose to send samples to any location you wanted to. So when you're on the shipping part of your process, you can say, hey, I want to ship this to my office. Let's say I'm working on a hotel project. This happened in the past for an international architecture firm, or just an architecture firm that has multiple offices. Say, hey, you can ship up to 3 different packages for every order. So I can say, I made my selection of 10 materials. I'm gonna ship one of such to my office in London, the second one to the office of the project is in Italy, so we have an office in Milan. I'm going to ship that to Milan. And the third one I'm going to ship to my client, or let's say if the project is for Hilton, I'm going to send that to the Hilton office in Paris. And you can do that. And so that's super cool. But you are the one as the user, you're the one in charge of that. Your customer or someone who's not a professional will not have that ability. They can access the website, they can filter, they can see the website, but they cannot order samples.
Amazing, perfect. Thank you very much, Marc. George, if you wanted to just bring up, we had a couple. So thank you everyone who shared questions beforehand. I'm just conscious of getting a couple of those in as well, and we've had a couple of similar ones. So if we can, I think one of the main theme, I suppose, was one of them around like how often are the materials updated, which is probably a good question as well, and part of our partnership and questions around that as well. But in general, maybe Marc, there's the top one. We had it in the chat, and then we've also had it here.
Yeah. So in terms of new materials, so I mean, look, we're adding brands on Material Bank on a weekly basis. We have a pipeline. I think we have a pipeline of around 60 manufacturers that we need to onboard to the platform. And our idea is that we're working with George and the team to find a way that we can make those available as well. And so that's for us, our product, like having our product catalog available in a digital way is of high priority, and so we'll figure out how we get there. But that's our philosophy.
Yeah, I think there's 16,000 assets in the material catalog now on our platform. And as Marc says, we're keen to make sure that that's as up to date and current as possible. It's currently static, but it will be. That's a point we're working on.
Yeah. For the US, so we have work in the UK and the US. So that's a very good question. Today, we have 2 separate catalogs. You have materialbank.com, which is North America, and you have materialbank.eu, which is Europe. We're working on consolidating our platform globally. It's not yet the case today. It's not because we want it that way, just because our brands generally have different catalogs, US and Europe, different certifications, permits, etc. So it's 2 separate websites. So if you have projects in both UK and North America, I would suggest that you create 2 different usernames for now and order samples either in the US if your project is based in the US, or in the UK if it's for a European-based project. Just because the brands that are going to be on the European side are ready to service a project in Europe, and likewise for North America. But quick side note, this is something it's top of mind for us, but sometimes it's hard. You would have European brands that are super have fantastic products, but sometimes they don't want to sell in the US, or they don't have a distributor in the US, or they're not prepared to service that market. So that's why for now it's separated, but we're working on making it that easier and making it a global platform.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry, George.
Maybe just say that the current catalogue is Material Bank EU on Gendo. That's another point. We'd like to get the US side stuff on too, so it's available to anyone on Gendo to use them and to use it with the material tool in terms of the generative functions. But it is just the EU that will be able to order the samples physically at the moment.
Perfect. Cool. And then maybe just got one other thank you, Alan, in the chat, or directly to the question. And George, maybe I don't know if you want to cover to start off with, but it's easy to select materials from Material Bank and generate a set of room mood boards for individual projects can be shared, discussed, and altered for inspiration and concept design directly with clients, similar to generating a hidden Pinterest page. So I suppose there's a route.
Yes, I guess a few things in there. So you will be able to generate lots of images, obviously, that match your sort of vibe and aesthetic. So you can construct effectively a Pinterest board on Gendo with those references, with your inputs, etc. And it's already true that we have people who have Gendo open in meetings with clients, with planning officers, stakeholders generally, that they can then, reach alignment in the room, try these ideas out, and then crack on, rather than sort of the typical back and forth across Viz and traditional Viz processes and weeks. So yes, certainly true. I think it's just a bit of organization and on the platform using the generative tools, and we've got a couple of features that will coming up soon that should make that easier for you.
And maybe that segues on maybe to the question on which is what can Gendo users look forward to in the next 12 months, which is a fairly big question. And we only got a few minutes left.
Yeah, a year is a long time. Yeah, a lot really. So very short term upcoming features are as I said, material rotation and scale. There was a question about setting scale inside of an image. You will be able to control it, but it won't be quite as direct as that. But you should be able to relatively upscale and downscale materials to make sure that you're happy with the size, nice and straightforwardly. We're also on the back of the last competition we ran, which hopefully we'll be doing with Material Bank shortly, a competition too, detail to follow on that. But a lot of the requests there were around organizational things like frames, text, control over font, that sort of stuff to make presentations on the canvas easier. Again, going back to the previous question. So we're also working on that. There's a bunch of just quality improvements to the generative tools that we have as well. Another theme is the image degradation. Some of the models, if you iterate lots and lots, start to degrade the image. We've got a very nice solution to that, which again should be out soon, which should mean that you should be able to go really hard on your edits and iterations and variations there. But otherwise, the view is to get closer to where you work and to expand the tool set with people like Material Bank and integrate more closely with CAD and the other assets and drawings that you may already have and text, so that Gendo is not just about images, but is more and more about design process, decision capture, and your real world projects, and making sure that it is useful at every step of that process, not just when you need to make images. So that's the ambition, but lots to do between here and there. So again, always appreciate your feedback and input. So don't hold back on that front.
Definitely. Perfect. Well, if we could just jump to the next slide, I'm just going to run a quick poll. Well, you've got this as well, but I'm going to pop up a quick poll. It'd be great to get kind of thoughts and feedback. Let me just launch that. It will take around, I think, 30 seconds, but it'd be super helpful for all of us, especially as George mentioned, in terms of taking feedback in the direction we're going. As thanks for attending as well, we've got a code up on the screen here if you'd like to take offer, which is 20% off for 12 months and 2 months free. But maybe just while that poll is up, and maybe just to hear from yourself, George and Mark, maybe like just like a recap or maybe top tips going forward on what to do, and any further notes before we wrap up.
Go ahead, maybe George. I mean, on my side, like the recap is super excited to kick this off. Material Bank has been operating for 7 years. We've mostly been focused on building our physical infrastructure and logistics in terms of like product catalog, sample shipment, etc. And we're super excited to be now really looking into the digital part of the business and having it where our product catalog is now available with more advanced digital capabilities, rendering, AR, et cetera, and everything that's going to be coming up. And so, just want to say thanks to everybody for joining, and also George and Joe for Gendo and everything. I've been using Gendo quite a bit lately, just to internally portray the software to the team, and it's impressive to see what you've built. So very proud to be working together.
Yeah, amazing. Likewise, thanks to everyone who's turned up, and thanks to Material Bank. It's awesome to be able to present their catalog inside the product and empower people to get more done faster. So always happy with that, and we continue to work on closing the loop right between sort of design processes and decisions, and bringing specification a little bit closer to as part of that process is super exciting to us. Maybe there's two more questions that were in the chat that's come through before you close the survey, just to answer that there's one more upcoming thing, which is much tighter custom styles. We have our pre-built styles, which are preset and ready for you to use, like hand sketch, as was questioned, but custom styles is something we've been working on and have got a nice solution to as well. And adding prompts to videos we're looking at, as we said, we try to keep it quite controlled and reliable and consistent so that you can turn up each day and know what to expect coming out of it as much as is possible with AI. So adding in some custom prompts is something we're working on too as well.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, George and Marc, for joining today. And thank you so much, everyone, as well. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you for the next one. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.